Fighting in eastern Ukraine has intensified, with new battlefield assessments showing continued Russian advances across the Donetsk front. According to data released by the United States Institute for the Study of War, Russian forces captured approximately 461 square kilometers of Ukrainian territory in October, marking one of the largest monthly gains in recent months. According to the report, these gains are part of a consistent pattern seen in recent months, marking a slow but steady advance by Russian troops, primarily concentrated in the Donetsk region. The city of Pokrovsk, once a key logistical and administrative hub for Ukrainian forces in eastern Donetsk, now stands at the center of this renewed offensive. Satellite imagery and field reports indicate Russian forces have been tightening their positions around the city's outskirts, engaging in continuous artillery and drone strikes designed to weaken Ukrainian defenses before a potential full-scale assault. Over the weekend, Ukrainian authorities confirmed that Special Forces units were redeployed to reinforce Pokrovsk. These include elements from the Security Service of Ukraine and the Main Intelligence Directorate, units known for rapid response and urban warfare capability. The goal, to prevent Russian troops from encircling the city, a move that would threaten vital supply routes linking Pokrovsk to other defensive lines across Donetsk. The neighbouring city of Myrnohrad, located just a few kilometres to the south, has also come under increasing pressure. Both cities form part of a regional network of fortified positions established by Ukraine since 2022. Their fall would mark one of the most significant shifts in control since the battle for Bakhmut. In footage released by the Russian Ministry of Defense, aerial images show multiple explosions striking what Moscow claims are Ukrainian positions and infrastructure. The ministry released additional video showing soldiers raising the Russian flag near destroyed buildings. These images, however, could not be independently verified. Further footage from the same source purportedly shows Russia's top military officials, including Chief of the General Staff Valery Gerasimov, Deputy Defense Minister Alexei Krivoruchko, and Deputy Chief of the General Staff Sergei Rudskoy, inspecting a command center of the Center Group of Forces operating in Ukraine. During the inspection, officers were seen briefing the generals on ongoing operations, though the precise location was not disclosed. According to Russian state media, the visit was intended to review operational progress and assess troop morale. Analysts believe such high-level inspections are often staged to demonstrate control and confidence amid the long-running campaign. Inside Pokrovsk, daily life has grown increasingly difficult. Footage obtained by AFP shows residents carrying personal belongings through streets lined with damaged vehicles. Civilians navigate debris from recent shelling, while local authorities attempt to organize limited evacuations. Emergency services report that electricity and water supply remain severely disrupted in much of the city. Ukrainian officials accuse Russian forces of targeting civilian infrastructure to break morale and force displacement, a tactic Kyiv says has become common in contested areas. Moscow, however, insists its operations are aimed solely at military targets. The broader situation in Donetsk remains volatile. The Russian Defense Ministry has called on Ukraine to withdraw its troops from the region entirely. Kyiv has rejected that demand, calling it an unacceptable condition that undermines Ukrainian sovereignty. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, speaking earlier this week, reiterated that Ukraine would not concede any territory. Ukraine's borders remain unchanged. We will defend every community, every city, every metre of our land, he said. At the same time, the Ukrainian Armed Forces General Staff reported ongoing defensive operations in Pokrovsk and neighbouring settlements. In its latest briefing, the General Staff stated that Russian assaults had been repelled multiple times, with heavy losses inflicted on advancing troops. The Institute for the Study of War notes that Russia's territorial gains in October, totaling roughly 461 square kilometres, bring the total land area under Russian control to approximately 19% of Ukraine's internationally recognized territory. This includes parts of Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhzhia and Kherson regions. Analysts point out that while Russia's progress appears gradual, it reflects a shift in battlefield dynamics driven by Ukraine's ammunition shortages and delayed Western military aid. Defense analysts from the Institute describe this period as one of attritional advantage for Russian forces, who continue to exploit gaps in Ukrainian logistics. Meanwhile, Ukrainian commanders emphasize that the fighting remains fluid. A senior Ukrainian officer stationed near Pokrovsk told local media that the battle line changes daily. They advance 100 meters, we push them back 200, he said. There are no major breakthroughs, just constant pressure. Satellite data from independent monitoring organizations shows significant destruction in Pokrovsk and surrounding areas. Dozens of residential blocks, schools and hospitals have sustained visible damage. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs reports that thousands of civilians have fled the Donetsk region since mid-October. Many of them have relocated to safer zones in Dnipro, Kharkiv and Zaporizhzhia. In a statement issued in Moscow, Russia's defense ministry claimed its forces had captured a number of tactically significant settlements around Pokrovsk and Myrnohrad. It also announced that Russian air defense units intercepted several Ukrainian drones attempting to strike logistical facilities inside Russian-held territory. However, Ukraine's Southern Command dismissed the Russian claims as exaggerated. It said combat operations are ongoing and that Ukrainian forces continue to hold key defensive lines west of Pokrovsk. As the front lines evolve, both sides continue to rely heavily on artillery and drone warfare. Ukrainian officials report that Russian forces are using Lancet loitering munitions and glide bombs in increasing numbers, while Ukrainian troops have intensified their use of domestically produced long-range drones targeting Russian ammunition depots and command posts. In one of the most recent updates, Ukraine's Air Force said it had shot down more than 40 Shahed-type drones launched by Russian forces across multiple regions, including Dnipropetrovsk and Poltava. Despite these efforts, military experts caution that Ukraine's defensive capacity is being tested by both resource shortages and sustained Russian pressure. The United Kingdom's Ministry of Defence, in its daily intelligence briefing, stated that Russia's incremental gains likely reflect a deliberate shift toward positional warfare, emphasising small tactical advances supported by overwhelming firepower. The situation in Pokrovsk and Myrnohrad mirrors the strategic pattern that Russia employed in earlier offensives, notably in Severodonetsk, Lysychansk and Avdiivka. Each involved prolonged bombardment followed by ground assaults aimed at encirclement. Regional officials in Donetsk have renewed calls for civilian evacuation. They warn that remaining residents face severe risks from daily shelling and lack of essential services. Local humanitarian organisations continue to provide limited food and medical aid, but warn that access routes are becoming increasingly dangerous. The International Committee of the Red Cross said in a statement that it remains deeply concerned about the humanitarian toll of the fighting and urged both parties to facilitate safe passage for civilians. Meanwhile, Russian media outlets have framed the Pokrovsk offensive as part of a larger campaign to secure the entire Donetsk Oblast, one of the stated objectives of Moscow's invasion launched in February 2022. The Kremlin continues to describe the conflict as a special military operation, insisting it is defending Russian-speaking populations and ensuring regional security. Kyiv and its Western allies reject that narrative, labelling the invasion an act of aggression and a violation of international law. The United Nations General Assembly has repeatedly called for the withdrawal of Russian forces from all occupied Ukrainian territory. Western intelligence agencies suggest that Moscow's October advances may be linked to intensified mobilization and improved logistical coordination among Russian units. Analysts say the Kremlin's strategy may also be aimed at demonstrating progress ahead of the winter months, when battlefield operations typically slow due to weather conditions. Ukraine's counteroffensive operations in the south have made limited progress, particularly in the Zaporizhzhia region, where heavy fortifications and minefields have impeded movement. Military experts believe Kyiv's focus on defensive consolidation in Donetsk reflects an effort to prevent further Russian territorial consolidation before winter sets in. Across both sides of the front, soldiers continue to endure harsh conditions. Temperatures are dropping, supply shortages persist, and morale remains a critical factor. Videos circulated on Ukrainian social media show troops reinforcing trenches and fortifications ahead of expected winter offensives. Diplomatic channels remain largely inactive. Peace negotiations have been stalled since early 2023, with both sides refusing to compromise on territorial terms. In a recent press conference, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov reiterated that Moscow's goals in Ukraine remain unchanged, emphasizing that Russian forces will continue operations until all objectives are achieved. Ukraine, on the other hand, maintains that any negotiations must be based on the full restoration of its 1991 borders. Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba stated, There can be no talks while Russian troops occupy our land. The only path forward is complete withdrawal. As of the latest data, approximately 19% of Ukrainian territory remains under Russian control. The Donetsk region continues to be the primary focus of combat operations, with Pokrovsk now representing the front line of that struggle. Humanitarian organizations warn that the displacement crisis is worsening. The UN estimates that more than 6 million Ukrainians remain internally displaced, with new waves of movement recorded each month. Infrastructure across eastern Ukraine faces continued destruction. Power stations, railway lines and storage facilities have been repeatedly targeted, deepening the challenge of maintaining supply chains and civilian resilience. In Washington, US officials reaffirmed support for Kyiv, noting that new aid packages are being discussed in Congress. European Union members, meanwhile, continue to coordinate arms deliveries and humanitarian support. For now, the fighting around Pokrovsk and Myrnohrad underscores the enduring intensity of a war entering its fourth winter, a conflict defined by attrition, strategic endurance, and devastating human cost. The Russian army's territorial gains, though incremental, signal a continued phase of offensive operations across eastern Ukraine. Ukrainian forces remain entrenched, resisting advances amid growing fatigue and resource strain. As winter approaches, the battle for Donetsk is set to remain one of the most closely watched and fiercely contested fronts in the ongoing war.